Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. This is Rabbi Richman from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. Today is the 21st day of the month of Mar Cheshvan, 5777. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of November, 2016. And this Shabbat, the Torah portion of Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. This Shabbat is also the Sabbath of the blessing of the new moon of Kislev, which will occur next week, Wednesday night and Thursday. Here I am still on my lonesome, Yitzchak Ruvain on vacation. I'm at the controls. Didn't hear from anybody last week that the show didn't come out or that they couldn't hear me. So I'm assuming that I did everything right and I got all the controls correct and got the show uploaded. So I hope that that is the case. And we hope that Yitzchak will come back to us soon and relieve the tension of my operating this program by myself. This week, the Torah portion of Chayei Sarah is so amazing. First of all, it begins with the words, these are the life of Sarah, this is the lifetime of Sarah, but actually it's all about her death. And of course, Avraham Avinu, Abraham, the first Jew, the patriarch, also passes away to the coming world at the end of this Torah portion. And indeed, the Torah portion really only deals with two things, the two major themes, the death of Sarah and the procurement of the tomb of the patriarchs in the Hebron, and the finding of a wife for Yitzchak, actually the birth of Yitzchak and the finding of a wife for Yitzchak. What do these things have to do with each other? How are they connected? In our lesson this week, in our video lesson this week, we want to explore the Torah's concept of old age, the old age that is ascribed to Avraham, and what it really means, and get a new, fresh perspective on the lives of these two people, Avraham and Sarah. They were so amazing, and their lives were so full of content, and they just kind of whir past us very, very quickly. And looking back at Avraham's life, when I say Avraham, I include Sarah as well, because they were a very good couple. They were a perfect couple. They were very, very close. And the hallmark of their life was chesed, performing acts of loving kindness. You know that our sages tell us that in terms of prophecy, Sarah was a greater prophet than Abraham. The life that they led together was one of tremendous selflessness. Looking back at his life, you know that there's a major lesson that Torah is teaching us through the life of the patriarch Abraham. And I got to tell you, in general, you know, I think it's clear, but I want to mention it anyway. You know, we get so excited about living our lives in synchronization with the Torah portion of the week. When we use the word Torah, the term Torah, which means instruction, it is a very massive concept because it is so comprehensive and it affects and includes all areas of our life. And there's so much knowledge that is conveyed by the word Torah. But specifically, the concept of the portions that we read every week of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, of the 5 books of the Torah, of the 5 books of Moses, and how they reverberate, and how they are so life-changing, and how their lessons seem to reflect on things that are going on in our own lives and on a global scale as well every week. It's endless, the cycle. It's deeper and deeper every year. So, you know, the Torah has a major theme that is teaching us with the life of Avraham. And that theme is that the greatest thing to do for someone, the greatest thing in the world that you can do for another person is an act of kindness, is a favor for someone, you know? That the world is saved one person at a time. And that was Avraham's whole life, you know. He brought the whole world of his time to an acknowledgement of an understanding of the one God. And you know that the sages tell us in the Midrash that when he passed away, all the nations of the world were grieving, and the greatest leaders, kings of the whole world, were grieving that he left them because they were learning so much from him. And he had a huge intellect. And he understood the whole Torah even before it was given. Do you understand what that is when we say that he understood the whole Torah? And the Torah had not yet been given, but yet he kept the entire Torah. This is extremely obscure to understand and extremely cryptic, this idea that the sages tell us that all the fine points, all the minutiae, all the little details of Torah observance, even rabbinical ordinances, he kept it. He kept them all, even though the Torah had not yet been given. Did he do that on a physical level? Did he do that on an intellectual level? On a symbolic level? That's not my point. My point is, as we said a number of weeks ago, he had no teacher. He had no teacher. He understood everything that there was to understand before it was given, and his teacher was his own intuitive self, because he was so driven to understand Hashem. He was so driven to want God in his life. He was so driven to see God's presence in this world that he was able to understand, as the sages tell us, from his own kidneys. They were his advisors, his teachers. In other words, his own intuitive understanding coming from the depths of his own being. But here's the thing. He understood the whole Torah even before it was given. And yet, he was able to capsulize and to make it into a microcosm, this understanding of God, to such a level that he was able to give it over in an unprecedented manner to every man, woman, and child that he met, on the level that everyone was able to understand. And you know how he was able to do that? Because he understood that the main thing in this world is doing something for someone else. Look around at society today. Everything is plummeting, Everything is rotten to the core. I don't want to complain. I don't want to say everything, but you know what I'm talking about. Everybody has this feeling that things are not what they once were in terms of morality, in terms of people looking out for other people. When people look for opportunities to do simple acts of kindness, that is like so old school. Like, where's the app for that? Like, what? That is so old school. But that's what Avraham was all about. He was about just looking for kindness and compassion and an opportunity to do something for someone else. And acts of kindness don't have to be life-changing. They don't have to be massive. They don't have to be unspeakably selfless, where a person just gives up everything for someone else. A person just does something in secret, that no one else knows, which of course is the most praiseworthy type of kindness altogether, because then the person is not looking for a reward. An act of kindness can also be so simple. It can be, and yet it could also be unspeakable. Looking to be able to do something for someone else. We all know what this is like. We've all either been, at one point in our lives, maybe all the time, maybe often, recipients of kindness of other people, as well as we all look for opportunities to be able to do something for someone else. Because when it's all settled, what really lasts, what we take with us in the next world, into the real world, as the verse tells us here in chapter 24, Abraham, first verse in chapter 24, Abraham was old, well on in years, and Hashem had blessed Abraham with everything. But in Hebrew, Avraham Zaken, Avraham was old, bayamim. He came in his days in Hebrew, and I've spoken about this before, not advanced in years, but he came in his days. His days accompanied him because they were like living witnesses. His days came and testified to how he spent them. So, there was a video going around on Facebook some time ago that someone made in Israel. I didn't see the one that was made in America. Apparently, it was a video that was made in America where somebody was masquerading as a blind person. Somebody decided they want to do a bit of investigative journalism and pretend what a blind person goes through. And so the person was pretending to be blind, and he did some kind of a thing where he he took out a bill. It was, I forgot already what denomination it was, if it was 100 or a 20, and he made as if he was helpless and blind, and he said, like, oh, could you change this $5 bill or whatever? And somebody was videoing it. I guess it was in New York. I don't even know. I'll tell you the important part of the story in a minute. But in any event, people basically robbed him. People were just walking by and they said, oh yeah, sure, man, and they, whatever it is, but nobody gave him the right change, and everybody took advantage of him. It was horrible to watch, right? Somebody saw that, and they did the same thing here in Israel. Somebody saw that, and they said, I want to see what it would be like if we did that in Israel. And this has nothing to do with religious, not religious, or anything like that. Someone did the same thing. They pretended that they were blind, and they stood on a corner and stopped passerbys and took out, I guess it was a 200 shekel bill, and said, I need to make a change of this small bill. And you know what? I just watched it and I just cried. I just could not believe it. I just bawled like a baby. It's every single person that walked by, no matter what, male or female, young or old. Everyone said, well, first of all, you have the wrong bill, so put that away. And now let's see how I can help you. And so many people just gave him money and said, maybe you don't have any. Can I take you someplace? Where do you have to go? But every single person said, well, first of all, this is not the bill, so quickly put that in your pocket so you don't lose it. And today, with societies just on the verge of total, decay, when someone does something for someone else, that comes into the world from the power of Abraham. That was his way. So a minute ago I said, how is it that he was able to bring the whole world to a knowledge of Hashem? How is it that he was able to have this huge intellect where he understood everything and he understood it intuitively, and yet he was able to capsulize an understanding of God and bring it to everyone on such a level that everyone was able to understand it? You know why? Because the way that he brought the knowledge of Hashem to everyone is through an understanding that the world is based on kindness. Right? So there's an important verse in Psalms 89, a beautiful verse. Psalm 89 begins, a maskil, that's a type of psalm, by Eitan the Ezrachite. And I've spoken about this psalm before. And there's a very important teaching that although King David wrote most of the Psalms, and he is the editor of the Psalms. I say he's the editor because in addition to the Psalms that he wrote, he also collated and included Psalms that had been written by others. Thus the sages teach in Tractate Bava Batra, in what's called a Braita, that Asara Zekinim, 10 elders, wrote the book of Psalms, and they're enumerated there. Adam Harishon, Adam, the first man, he wrote, for example, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, the song for the Sabbath day, Psalm 92. Asaf, Heman, Idutan, Moshe, Avraham, Melchizedek, and the 3 sons of Korach. Altogether, 10 elders wrote the book of Psalms. And Psalm 89 is particularly precious to me. It's magnificent, and it's just so unbelievable. And it talks a lot about David and his role and his descendants as being Mashiach, but it's written by none other than Eitan, the Ezrachi. Ezrachi means the citizen. In modern Hebrew, a citizen is called an Ezrach. So who is Eitan? By the way, Eitan is a word, it's a name also in Hebrew, and it means like to be steadfast, to be powerful in a steadfast way. The Ezrachi, because he was the citizen, he was the first citizen of the world, because he wanted to see to it that the world is connected to Hashem, that Hashem's knowledge becomes the legacy of all mankind. So Psalms 89 begins, a maskil for Eitan the Ezrachi, and it says, Chaste Hashem le'olam, Ashira l'dor v'dor. Of Hashem's kindness I will sing forever. I will make your faithfulness known to every generation with my mouth. That's exactly what Abraham was all about. And then the next verse says, for I said, Ki amarti olam chesed yibaneh. For I said, and here I'm looking at this translation, forever will your kindness be built. Forever will your kindness be built, it says here in English. But actually, this verse also, these words convey a different understanding. Olam chesed yibaneh, even though it's future tense, because it has to continue. But olam chesed yibaneh here, in the understanding of our sages, is also understood to mean the world was built, is founded on kindness. That was the reason for the creation of the world in the first place. And that translates into a very simple idea, which is that Hashem brought all creation forth in the first place in order to bestow kindness upon man. This is a basic principle of Torah thought, that is why Hashem brought this world into existence in the first place and placed man at the center in order to give him free choice so that he will be able to accrue Hashem's kindness, not in this world but in the next. But this psalm, which is so magnificent, begins with these words, and this is Abraham's whole legacy. The greatest thing to do for someone else is the simplest favor, and it's an amazing idea that I want to speak more about. And again, in this week's Torah video lesson, I want to speak more about the concept of Abraham and what I think the Torah is teaching us, a secret about the true meaning of old age. And so if you are old, or know anybody who is, or if you plan on growing old, this is a must. But at the same time that Abraham is described here as a zaken, as old, ba b'yamim, advanced in years, or having come in his days, he also had the secret to eternal youth, as I taught recently regarding the coin with the two sides, the older couple and the younger couple, the idea of, in the words of our Nobel Prize laureate Bob Dylan, may you stay forever young. Abraham was old, as we read in this week's Torah portion, but yet he was forever young, and that recalls that teaching of the two-sided coin that was minted by Abraham. Here's the thing, though, about this concept of kindness and how important it is, and it's just been so forgotten by so many people, the joy of what it means to do for someone else. In the Torah, for sure, that is like the most important thing of all. That is the measure of a person, to be able to do something for someone else without expecting a reward. So, there's something here in the very beginning of this week's Torah portion which carries over from Parshat Vayera, when the three angels came to visit Avraham, and now it kind of crescendos in Parshat Chayei Sarah with the Cave of Machpelah, the Double Cave in Hebron, the burial place of the forefathers and the matriarchs. And I've said it before, but I got to say it again because it is absolutely the most exquisite thing, I think, that is just imaginable. And that is basically this lesson between the lines on the secret of how to get into Gan Eden, the secret of the entrance to the Garden of Eden. HaMachpela is a very special place, the tomb of the patriarchs, the Double Cave in Hebron. It's called Machpela, double, for several reasons. One is because it's like kind of two-storied. It's like one level on top of another. But traditionally, our sages understand that it's called the Double Cave because of the pairs that are buried there. Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Leah. And there is a teaching that our sages teach us that in addition to it being the entrance to the Garden of Eden, it's also kind of like a portal that every soul of every person, when they leave the world, before they ascend on high, they pass through that place. Wow. They pass through Hebron, through the tomb of the patriarchs, where Adam himself is buried, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their wives. And you know what? The more we understand what that means and what it's all about, the more everything makes sense to us. And it's a very, very holy place, and Hebron is a very, very holy city. And honestly, This might sound extreme to you, but from my understanding of the deepest teachings of our sages of blessed memory, the tomb of the patriarchs is holy in a way that's very similar to the holiness of the Holy Temple itself. And you know what? Again, in so many ways, Abraham is like the founder, the layer of the cornerstone of the Holy Temple. So what do I mean when I say that this is the secret of finding the entrance to Gan Eden? You know, in the beginning of Parshat Vayera, we had read that Hashem appeared to Avraham in the plains of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. And we were talking about how Avraham was sitting at the entrance and he was in great pain on the third day following a circumcision, and God himself was visiting him in fulfillment of the commandment of visiting the sick. But Avraham was so upset that there was no passerbys, that Hashem, because Hashem had made it so hot because he didn't want him to be bothered, that instead he sent these three ordinary wayfarers who even Avraham thought were idolaters, but they were actually angels, and he jumped up quickly to bestow some of his famous hospitality upon them. And he left God in the lurch because, left the conversation dangling in the air, because he wanted to be like God, not just to meditate on God, not just to talk to him, not even to be with him. He said, I don't have time to be with you now because I have to be like you. Anyway, what does that have to do with Chayei Sarah and the tomb of the patriarchs? So what happened was, he went and he was preparing a feast for these three wayfarers. And he was running after the cattle. Right? He aims to prepare a banquet for them. He tells his wife, hurry, knead and make 3 cakes, while he himself, in his condition, goes running after the cattle. So what happened was, one of the calves, according to this remarkable tradition, runs into a cave, and Avraham runs to catch it. That cave turned out to be none other than HaMachpela, the famed Double Cave of Hebron. And that's how Abraham discovered it. He was running after a little calf to prepare a feast for these 3 visitors. And one of the calves runs in there, and he goes in there. And when he went into that cave, he saw Adam and Eve lying there in repose. He knew exactly who they were. He was overcome with a tremendous burning sense of yearning for that place. And he wished to make it his own burial place. Why is that? What does that symbolize? It's the most incredible teaching, and we're going to get right back to it, if this is recording properly, when we come right back to Temple Talk. Stay with us, Temple Talk. Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. Rabbi Richman here, substituting for myself. Filling in for myself, and alone on the dial, on the controls. Yitzchak Ruvain is on vacation today, the 21st day of the month of Mar Cheshvan 5777, and it is the 22nd of November 2016, and we're talking about Parshat Chayei Sarah. And I wanted to give over this idea of the idea mentioned in the Holy Zohar that HaMachpela is the entrance to Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. Is it literal? Isn't it literal? One thing is for sure. Abraham ran into this cave, never having seen it before. He was running after a little calf, hobbling in his post-circumcision state of 99 years on the 3rd day, but not willing to forego the opportunity to bestow an act of kindness on these 3 strangers, make them a royal meal. He sees Adam and Eve lying there. This is the deepest teaching in the world. He knew exactly who they were, and he was overcome with a desire to make that his own place. He was overcome with this feeling of sheer holiness and the divine presence in that place. So later, it was easy for him to purchase it from Ephron, who didn't personally see a thing there, particularly special or desirous about it. He just couldn't see it. We see it's not a physical thing that can be seen with the naked eye. It's the entrance to the Garden of Eden, a spiritual concept. So why is it that Abraham wanted? So first of all, now already you know to some extent, why all souls go through that place on their way to wherever they're going. Because Adam himself is like the switchboard. We have a reckoning to give to him as well. All come from Adam. And so he's the controller of all the souls that are going home. Avraham wanted to be buried there, though. I think this is what the sages are trying to teach us, because he wanted to be part of the legacy of Adam HaRishon, the first man. And like himself, Adam also had a close and personal relationship with the Creator. But even more so, it was Avraham who was the continuation of Adam's heritage. Avraham was no less than the guarantor that all of humanity would learn that there's only one God. That was Abraham's life calling, and as we've said, he went about that through acts of kindness. Because Abraham took responsibility to bring the light of God to all humanity, and as you know, until Abraham came along, the generations were not looking for God. They were running away from him, even after the flood. So Abraham discovers this holy place, the entrance, as it were, in quotation marks, to the Garden of Eden, what was to become the tomb of the patriarchs. He discovers it quite by accident, right? He's running after a little calf, which he intends to slaughter, to fix a meal, to prepare for a bunch of strangers. So here's where you have to open up your heart in the deepest way, because the sages are telling us here two of the deepest secrets in the world. Two secrets in one. First of all, again, as we spoke about in last week's Parshat Vayera, the secret of a true religious experience. It's very, very easy to pretend to be holy. But what does it really mean to be holy? I'm talking about acts of kindness, right? Whether random acts of kindness or looking for the opportunity to be able to be there for someone else, or if someone asks frankly for help, right, and not turning them down. A person could be very, very holy. I don't know what that means exactly, but if they don't hear someone else's plea, so what's holy about? Certainly the ears aren't holy. Right, a person can sit back and roll his eyes and make all sorts of expressions and claim to have visions and prophecy, right? But if you can't do something for someone else, then what is it all about? That's not holiness at all, right? Like in the beginning of last week's Parsha, like we spoke about this, it's just so exciting to me. Abraham was having a real face-to-face visit with God, conversing with him intimately. He sees what he perceives to be three ordinary people, even idolaters. But he opted to terminate his intimate meeting with God himself, instead opting to choose for the opportunity to bestow upon these strangers an act of kindness, because this is the true religious experience. Imetio Dei, acting like God, not just talking about him or even talking to him, right? Not even talking to him. It's all about action. That's the Torah. That's our holy Torah. Everything is about doing. It's the basis of the Torah and its commandments. Okay, so he leaves the conversation with God. This is still last week. And he's running after this calf. And he stumbles upon the entrance to none other than the Garden of Eden. And Adam is there at the entrance. Our sages are teaching this amazing thing here. Are you getting it? That the road to the Garden of Eden is paved with acts of loving kindness. All Abraham was trying to do was simply a good deed, catch a simple calf and prepare a simple meal. This is the most profound thing that I've ever encountered. Doing something for someone else is how to find the entrance to the Garden of Eden, and that is how to get in. And action is what Abraham was all about. Right? So it's a famous expression, the road to paradise is paved with good intentions. Actually, I think the famous expression is the opposite anyway. But the point is, Abraham teaches us that the road to the Garden of Eden is paved with good deeds. And I think that this is such a classic and beautiful example of the power of the metaphor, of the vehicle, the poetic vehicle of the Midrash, or what our sages convey to us in these incredible homiletic teachings, right? You come across this teaching, and if you don't understand what they're trying to tell you, then you just say, oh, that's an interesting anecdote, or you just say, oh, that's cute or quaint or a grandmother's tale or whatever. You know, that the sages are saying that a calf ran into the entrance of the cave, and Abraham ran after it, and that's how he discovered the cave. That's not what they're saying. If we understand the power of Marat HaMachpela, of the tomb of the patriarchs, and what it means, what the rectification means. And we understand that he happened to find it because he was running after a cow. It's so unromantic. It's so not spiritual, right? It's so not spiritual, what people would think. But yet that was how he found this place, which is the entrance. Again, literal, not literal, doesn't matter. It's the concept that matters. The concept that through an act of kindness, everything opens up to us. Everything opens up to us. Speaking of Marat HaMachpela, which we must speak about because this is the week of Chayei Sarah, and again we have some other concepts that we want to explore in our video this week on a deeper level about Abraham and Sarah and the meaning of their advanced age and what they left behind and what their life's work was. But we've also made reference occasionally to the famous teaching of our sages that there are three places about which the world cannot try to defraud the people of Israel and claim that we are squatting or that we have no right to these places, right? While the entire land of Israel, as Hashem has told Abraham numerous times throughout these Torah portions, the entire land of Israel, he gives over to Abraham and to his children through Isaac and Jacob forever. Yet there are three places in particular where there's actually a transaction that's recorded, a deed of sale. And those three places are the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron, which we read about this week, that Abraham purchased, and the place of the Holy Temple, the site of the Temple Mount, which was then the threshing floor of Aravna, the Jebusite, which King David purchased, and the tomb of Joseph in the city of Shechem. Those three places, the Torah testifies, money went down, a purchase was made, an acquisition. Again, it's quite clear to all of us what this represents, how important it is, because of the fact that these three places represent so much contention and so many efforts that are being made against the people of Israel to wrest our heritage away from us and to drive a wedge between the people of Israel and her land, and thus and her God as well. And it's not for naught that Torah emphasizes this concept of the legality, as it were, as if Hashem needs a lawyer, as if we need to be able to bring this to the world court. But that indeed, the Torah actually emphasizes the legality of the purchase of these three places. And in today's world of the unrelenting assaults made on Jewish sovereignty and heritage, made by UNESCO, made by so many other elements as well, so many other voices that are heard that try to disqualify, disenfranchise, delegitimize the state of Israel and our presence here. This is an eternal teaching. And when we learn this kind of thing and we look at Torah and we understand the significance of these places, it only makes it that much clearer why these voices are heard and why these attempts are made by these bandits, these history raping bandits who wish to destroy our heritage and wish to erase it. We understand why when the Torah emphasizes how important it is. It's like these three places are the foundation, the key to everything. And therefore, these robbers, like UNESCO, come along and try to cast doubt and even deny completely and openly that we have any rights to these places. And that's their way of trying to unravel everything, trying to unravel the legitimacy of the Jewish people altogether. It's an attack against the Jewish people. Any attack against the land of Israel is an attack against the Jewish people, and it's an attack against the God of Israel, and it's always been that way, and it always will be that way. And thus we seek to strengthen these places as we seek to strengthen sovereignty throughout the entire land of Israel. And this is not an ethnocentric thing. This is not like our thing, like, oh, we want to have our place here. You got your place. We want to have our place. We want to have our place under the sun. That's not what it is at all. It's about the rest of the world. And I compare it to the prayers that are recited by the Jewish people on Rosh Hashanah, the most important day of the year, the birthday of Adam, the day when Hashem is making a reckoning for all of the descendants of man. I've always emphasized that on that day, if you look at the Machzor, the high holiday prayer book that Israel uses on Rosh Hashanah, most of the prayers, the theme of the prayers is about the unity of all mankind. And they're breathtaking prayers that are uttered by Israel in Rosh Hashanah, where we ask that evil should be vanquished from the world, where we ask that all nations should be united in the recognition of Hashem, that those who are furthest away should know who He is, and that there should be total peace and unity and harmony amongst all of humanity. It's very international, that kind of prayer, right? In other words, Rosh Hashanah is not even about us. It's not about Israel. It's about the world. And why is that? Again, you need to look no further than these Torah portions to understand why. Because Avraham is the torch-bearer of Adam HaRishon himself, because nobody else wanted the job. And Avraham, that's why I mentioned to you at the end of Parshat Noach, after the upheaval of the flood, and then after the upheaval of the generation, the dispersion, the Tower of Babel, everything, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, at the end of Parshat Noach, Abraham's genealogy is introduced. And then all of a sudden, at the beginning of Parshat Lech Lecha, from nowhere, Hashem says to Avraham, get out, go into yourself, go for yourself, and I'm going to make you into a nation, and all those who bless you will be blessed. That's because Hashem was saying, who is going to come along? Is anyone listening to me? Is anyone going to stand up and guarantee to me that my name will not be forgotten? And that was Abraham. And that's why Abraham identified so much with Adam HaRishon, and that's why he identified so much with his burial place, and that's why he wanted so much to go out on a limb and say, I will be your continuation. And that's what the role of Israel is in the world as well. And I believe that that's the role of the state of Israel in the world. And I think that the state of Israel is doing a very, very good job, considering everything that is aligned against it. The state of Israel is struggling to be that very thing. So too, just as Abraham is bringing forth this legacy of Adam, so too, and that's why the prayers on Rosh Hashanah are not focused inward, but focused outward. So too, the state of the world is so directly connected to what is going on in Israel. And every attempt to darken the eyes of Israel, to destroy Israel, to undermine its legitimacy, is striking away at the edifice of humanity. And a strong Israel and Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel brings blessing and abundance to the whole world. And the crescendo of that equation, of course, is the Holy Temple. And the Holy Temple is the secret of peace and harmony and light and abundance and joy and every blessing to emanate to all of humanity. So give peace a chance. That's all we're saying, is give peace a chance. That's what this is all about. And so every time you read in the news about all the... And by the way, in the past 24 hours, there have been so many terror attacks, but light core terror attacks here in Israel, so they don't make the news. Attempted stabbings and rockings of buses and trains and people and cars. And thank God you only hear about something when someone is killed. And maybe you'll hear about it when there's an attempt to kill someone, like was made also this week with the stabbing of a soldier. But the point is, what it's all about is it's all about this steady drip of trying to undermine the spirit of holiness in the world. And the diametric opposite of the BDS movement, right? The boycott, divests, and sanctions, and the diametric opposite of all the hate that is channeled against Israel and against the Jewish people, and all of it. The diametric opposite is Avraham. Abraham, exactly. Right? Abraham, who goes running after the three strangers. Abraham, whose entire modus operandi of bringing the knowledge of God into the world is through acts of kindness. And like the verse in Ecclesiastes says, God created one against the other, right? And this is the answer. And this is the true spirit of Torah. And this is so old school. So just try and leave something here of lasting beauty and light and goodness. And that's what it means to bestow acts of kindness. And I want you to know this whole idea of Avraham representing the midah, the attribute of chesed, and what it really means and how he was able to do that. It's just a lifetime of study, a lifetime to understand the significance of really trying to help another person. And it's just amazing now. And now the Parshat are going to be going so quickly, and I'm going to get that frustration again, that frustration that sets in every year with trying to explore the Torah portions and trying to distill succinct points that are going to be able to serve as beacons, as life lessons for everyone, for Jews, for non-Jews, for the whole world together, to love Hashem and to know how much He loves all of us and how much we should all love each other. And that's my goal, is to try to distill everything into points that we can take home and grow from. And yet the Parshat go by so quickly, and life is going by so quickly, and time is going by so quickly, and it's endless. And there's so much to say, there's so much to learn. And my consolation is, as I'm growing older too, look, check out this week's Torah portion. My consolation is that there is so much to learn, but yet every year Hashem gives us this tremendous blessing of being able to go deeper and deeper in understanding and to uncover more and more. And the more sincere we are, and the more that we're searching for Him, the more all of a sudden we see things that we never saw before, and we understand on a deeper level. And Hashem gives us the capacity intellectually, spiritually, emotionally to be able to hold more and more. And that is exactly what Avraham was also all about, because he was just so totally consumed with a desire to know that Hashem is in this world, to be able to bring that knowledge to everyone that he met. That was his greatest act of chesed of all. His greatest act of kindness was his own life's work, not just of preparing meals and giving hospitality to people in the spirit of God Himself. But the greatest thing that he did for another person was to be able to teach that there's a God in the world. And that is such a beautiful idea. What an incredible inspiration for every generation to be able to think about what he accomplished with his life and what he gave over and how he overcame everything. And the whole concept of the 10 tests and that most important axiom that our sages teach us, that everything that transpired to the forefathers will transpire to the children. That ma'aseh avot siman lebanim, that which occurred for the fathers is a portent of that which will befell the children as well. And all roads lead to the Holy Temple. And this month we are beginning projects of harvesting the oils, the olives, here in the land of Israel, in order to produce once again, for the fourth year in a row, pure olive oil, according to biblical standards. That this is the season for harvesting the olives, and this is in perfect, of course, preparation for the beautiful time of Chanukah that is coming up very, very soon. So we're already beginning to prepare the olives, and here in the Temple Institute, the scholars of the Institute have prepared a guide for all of the requirements to make sure that we are able to do this in a perfect biblical purity. Very recently began this, as I mentioned just a couple of years ago, having produced the first olive oil since the destruction of the Holy Temple, that was produced in purity, in tahara, according to biblical standards, kept in purity, and eligible to be lit, to be kindled in the menorah of the Holy Temple. And there is so much going on now towards the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. It's not being done in the corner. It's not being done quietly or in the closet. It's way out there. It's a source of tremendous inspiration and pride to our generation. And what a privilege it is for us to be involved in it, and how grateful we are to all those that stand by our side and support the holy work of the Temple Institute in preparation for the Holy Temple, which is nothing less than the restoration of the honor of the God of Israel in this world, and the secret of peace and understanding and harmony between all nations, which of course is the goal of Rosh Hashanah, and which was the goal of Abraham, our forefather. I hear the music, and I hope that this has been recording once again without Yitzhak. I'm kind of lost here at the controls, but he'll be back soon. So, wishing everyone every blessing. Thank you for listening. Temple Talk.